Today we're going to talk about the strange disappearance of a British actress. But before we get started, welcome to True Crime with me, Anita. If you love all things true crime, including missing person cases, cold cases, and just the strange happenings of the world, you've come to the right place. Be sure to subscribe and turn on alerts so you never miss a video upload. Let's get started. Ana Constance Kent was a British actress who appeared in both stage and film productions. After a long period of working in London, she did move to the English countryside. She found a small village in Essex and a lovely cottage for herself. At this point, she was unmarried and planned on living alone. Unfortunately, she would vanish in the summer of 1939, and a worried friend would file a missing persons report 3 months later. This woman would tell police that she did go into Ada's home to look for her, but couldn't find her. She said the door was unlocked, a tray with the remains of a meal was on the table, and an open copy of Romeo and Juliet was resting on a chair near the fireplace. The police would search the cottage, but they couldn't find Ada, and really they had no idea where she would have gone. The Kent police would ask Bernard Constable, a local policeman, to check the house, which he did with another person. His statement was that nobody or no body was in the home at the time. Press reports stated that she seemed to have just vanished one summer afternoon. The reports did contain the following information. The door to the cottage was found unlocked. A supper tray with the remains of a meal was resting atop the dining table. A copy of Romeo and Juliet was found in a chair near the fireplace. Her coat was still on the hook. And the police did search this cottage from top to bottom and just could find no trace of Ada. And then in 1942, Ada's close friend, George Winkle, went to the cottage to see if he could find Ada or any clues to aid where she may have gone to. He claims to have broken in through the locked front door and searched the small 3-bedroom home, and he said he did from top to bottom and just couldn't find anything. He did claim that nothing was out of place, which obviously the last 2 searches said the same thing. And then 9 years later, in 1948, there's a mysterious deposit into Ada's bank account. This would prompt police to return back to her cottage to look for her. And what they found when they entered the cottage would leave them speechless. When they entered her cottage, they found a fully clothed skeleton positioned next to the bed. In some reports, they did say that next to the skeleton was an empty bottle marked poison. But this is very much debated. I do want to note that this is 1948, so it wouldn't be uncommon for them to mark bottles as poison. The police at this point are just flabbergasted. There had been numerous searches to Ada's home, and no body had ever been found in the home. The police report would state that although the cottage was dirty, it looked like it hadn't been touched in years. They would also note the supper tray was still there, but the book of Romeo and Juliet seemed to have disappeared. They would rule out robbery as a motive for this crime because there was jewels left behind and money. If this was Ada's body, who had returned her to her home, and when had they done it? And more surprising, police would determine that that skeleton was not Ada's. Though again, there's much debate if it was or not. So to this day, Ada remains missing, and they couldn't seem to identify this skeleton. Police did suspect that whoever put the money in Ada's account was the person who potentially abducted and killed her, or had something to do with her disappearance. They did say that whoever put those unidentifiable remains in her home could have possibly killed 2 people, one of them being Ada. I was able to find a British newspaper archive, and there was an article about Ada dated July 8th, 1949. It read, "The mystery surrounding the tumbled-down church cottage at Whalebone Corner was only half solved at yesterday's inquest in the crowded courthouse at Witham. Mr. Joseph Glover, foreman of the jury, told the deputy coroner of North East Essex that while he and his colleagues agreed that the yellow bones lying on the clerk's table in the court were those of former actress Ana Constance Kent, age 69, they could not say where or when death took place. So there is some discrepancy about whether they were Ada's bones or not. One newspaper article claims that they were, others claim that they were not. Based off what I read, I don't believe that they're Ada's bones, but again, it doesn't seem very clear. And considering this was in the 1940s, I don't think they were so sure either. I did read that before police took interest in her disappearance in 1939, children running in and out of her cottage had discovered bones. And they did have somebody testify about this. At the time he testified, he was 21 years old, and Derek Edward Allen would say that when he was 12, he and his friends clambered in through the cottage window. They had seen the bones under the bed, but they did not once think they were human. We thought they were those of an animal a dog had gnawed. The county pathologist would also give testimony about the remains. Dr. Francis Camps, county pathologist, who demonstrated the similarity between what he and his colleagues had discovered from the remains and the descriptions given by the lonely Miss Kent. He said there was no evidence of injury to the major bones, neither was there any sign of strangulation or poisoning. Landlord of the Whalebone Public House, Alfred J. Hasler, said he last saw Miss Kent on March 6, 1939. He said she looked very ill and was coughing badly. She never mixed with other people, he told the coroner. A gardener would go on to say that the night before she was first missed, he saw a light in the bedroom window of Church Cottage. 6 months later, he and PC Constable had looked inside the cottage. They went just inside the door of the bedroom, but did not see a body or any bones. He did not notice any odor in the room. And many people point out that this case seems quite theatrical, just like Ada. This case is strange for so many reasons, obviously. This woman supposedly goes up and missing, and then bones are found in her home, and the scene seems pretty set. There's Romeo and Juliet open by a fireplace. There's a food tray left out. Eventually, there's a poison bottle next to her bed. Everything screams theatrical. So I have read a lot of theories about this case. Some believe that Ada did it herself, that she just wanted to go down in history having people talk about this strange disappearance so they'd never forget her name. And others aren't so sure. They think that maybe somebody broke in, murdered her, and then lived in her cottage for quite a bit of time. Eventually, they took the bones back and placed them there. But the thing that gets me is that bank deposit. Who put money in her account and why? I'm not sure how the banking system worked in the 40s, but you would think they would have a receipt about who put money in the account. Some assume that it was Ada putting money in her own account so that investigators would go look for her and find the bones. I'm not sure it would make sense that if a murderer had killed her, that they would deposit money in her bank account. You would think that if it was a murder, they would steal as much as they could to make it look like a robbery gone wrong or something of the sort. I'm curious about those closest to her. Were they questioned extensively? Did they have reason to kill the woman? Why did George Winkle, who was supposedly a friend of hers, go back to that cottage 3 years later to break in and look for her? Of course, we can think he was frustrated and looking for answers, but something seems off about that. Maybe he was planting some evidence. Or perhaps Ada was still alive, and she was the mastermind behind all of this, and George was sent to plant evidence. A witness did say they saw Ada before she went missing. Was she perhaps sick and she knew she was sick and dying and decided to make it very theatrical? It could be a possibility. But I would love to know your guys' thought on this case. Was this a disappearance or murder? Or was this a ruse to get people talking? But that's it for today, guys. If you like this video or any other video on my channel, be sure to subscribe and turn on alerts so you never miss a video upload. If there's a case you'd like me to cover, pop it in the comments below, and I'll be sure to get to it. In the meantime, check out some other videos on my channel while you wait for the next upload, and I'll see you then.